Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this session on SAP Business Objects, the SAP Analytics Strategy, and this is particularly focused on Service Pack 4, so BI 4.3 Service Pack 4, what's going to be included in there. I'm delighted to welcome my SAP colleague, Patrick Sims, all the way from the US, who has kindly agreed to join us, and having the inside track, he's going to take you through what you can expect to see in Service Pack 4, which is going to be released, I think it was tomorrow, maybe it's December anyway, so it's
December, yeah, tomorrow. Not tomorrow, I think 12/31 thereabouts, but it could be early.
Okay, cool, super, thank you. So if we get started.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off so they can focus on the slides and not me. But
okay, and I will do the same after I've done my talky bit.
Very well.
Thank you. Okay, so if we move to the next slide, very quick little introduction from me. So my name's Helen Macy and I am a business development manager here at Codestone Solutions. So a lot of you on the call will be previous DS CalAds customer. Welcome to you, and if there's anybody new, welcome to you also. So DS CalAds is now a part of the Codestone group of companies. We were acquired a year ago now, which is that year's really flown by. So we are now making up the BI&A, so BI and Analytics line of business. So if you have a look at that wheel that's on the screen there, we are the green quadrant down in the bottom corner, fittingly, as green is my favorite color, so that's very good. So Codestone is made up of 4 distinct lines of business, and across those 4 lines of business we cover a multitude of applications and systems and offerings for our customers. So you've got ERP, which is SAP, S/4HANA, Business by Design, Business One, the BTP platform. We've got the EPM side of things, which is SAP Analytics Cloud, BPC, the old SAP BPC tool, and Getic. We've got a cloud and managed services team, which are orange. That's anything to do with Microsoft Office 365 licensing, Azure, cybersecurity, infrastructure as a service, and then the BI&A team, which is made up of the former DS CalAds company, effectively. So we're all still here. We're just part of the BI&A team now. Codestone itself has been going up for 25 years, so it's our 25th anniversary coming up. With the acquisition of DS CalAds and Clarivos earlier in the year, last year, we are now 230 people strong. We've got over 700 customers, very strong retention rate, SAP Gold Partner, Microsoft partner, and with revenues now of 30 million plus and looking to grow as well. Okay, so that's a little bit about who we are for those of you that don't know. But I think the main part of today is to talk to you about about Service Pack 4. It's not talking about S/4HANA at all. Service Pack 4 for Business Objects. So to that end, I will invite Patrick to take over and take you through what you can expect to see coming up. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Alan. You gave me a fright there. S/4HANA is not my bag. I'm all data and analytics all the time.
Sorry about that.
So before we get started, just the usual legal disclaimer. Everything we're talking about is still future, even though the future is imminent with Service Pack 4. But just to make sure that you understand that everything I'm showing you today could change at the whim or realities of product management as they go through this release cycle and the next one. So with that done, let's go ahead and look at timeline just to make sure everyone's clear on that. So we are currently in Business Objects. BI 4.3 is our primary mainstream maintenance code line. 4.2 still has 1 more year of priority 1 support after this, but I'm hoping that most have moved to 4.3 by now. And a key thing too is that this time next year, if Helen and Adrian have me back, I will be speaking to you about BI 2025, which I wish we had not renamed it like that, because you can think of it more of a 4.4. So already people see that and they think, oh my gosh, do I have to relicense? Do I have to do something else? No, it's the same code line, just with a different name for some foolish reason that Germany came up with. I don't know.
Just to jump in, Sorry to interrupt you, Patrick, because I forgot to mention. Everybody is staying on mute, but if you have got any questions throughout the course of the next half an hour, please pop them into the chat and we'll handle them at the end. So this may prompt some questions. They may be some that are forming in your brain already. So just you do have the opportunity to ask them and we'll field them all at the end. Sorry, carry on. Do apologise.
No, that's great. Thanks. And so that's everything above the gray line that we saw, which is the code line. Down below is another key initiative, which is what we call Private Cloud Edition. Since SAP broadly is trying to become a cloud company, we offer now a Private Cloud Edition of BusinessObjects, which is essentially just the same tool set run in the cloud, in the data center of your choice by us. So that's another option, and that continues going forward as well. So the key thing there is that your BobJ investments are safe beyond 2031 at this point. So the first version of BI 2025 again will be Q4 of next year, which then starts a 7-year life cycle for that. And I know that Paris is already discussing with Germany a follow-on to that release as well. So I do not see anything going away with BobJ for any near term whatsoever. We're not announcing anything end of anything other than maintenance for certain versions. That said, we are going to be focusing the 2025 release on the most adopted tools per our customer base. And so that's going to be Webby, of course, moving you finally from the UNV to the UNX universe type, Crystal Reports Classic, Analysis for Office, and the BI platform generally. And so that's kind of what it looks like. So on the left-hand side is where we are today. And on the right-hand side is where we will go with the 2025 release. So we'll still have Web, we still have Crystal Classic, Analysis for Office, and Lumira Designer. But the rest will kind of, go into end of maintenance mode. And for those who are wondering about that, where do we go? So for Lumira Discovery, our next kind of move is to move into SAP Analytics Cloud, which is the same for Analysis for OLAP. Crystal Reports for Enterprise. It was kind of a failed attempt at trying to bring the universe into Crystal, but we're actually going to do it smartly now, as you'll see when I discuss Service Pack 4. But you can still stick with Crystal Classic or Webby for that. Live Office, we're kind of moving into more of an OData motion. So I know Helen showed some of the Microsoft access that y'all have in your wheel of support. And so for us, instead of doing the Live Office as a plugin, we're having OData available in a more robust fashion for you to seed pieces of your Office, whether it's PowerPoint, whether it's Word docs, anything else you want in the Office suite with OData. Moving again to the UNX finally, but also moving off of multi-source universes. So it will be single source UNXs. So with that, let's talk 4.3 Service Pack 4. So the 3 pillars, number 3 is kind of always constant for us, right? We're always trying to improve the user experience, but I'd say number 1 and number 2 are kind of the more important ones. Number 2, we really are listening to you, the customer base. So when you put things into the SAP Ideas place, or the Influence Councils, they look at this every quarter. And so truly we are delivering a lot of customer requested enhancements in this service pack and in subsequent service packs and versions. And number 1, we're also trying to extend the scope of specific key features that we've added through the 4.3 lifecycle that were very well received and we wanted to do more with. But let's talk first Crystal. So Crystal is getting some love, and that first love is it's getting UNX support in Service Pack 4. So the whole key again with doing away with Crystal Enterprise, let's just focus on a single Crystal code line, but let's have that universe capability. And so it's in there with the query panel and your basic designer workflows, and even then the BOE workflows that you might do viewing, scheduling, publication, etc. A future state, so I'd say probably either Service Pack 5 and or BI 2025, we will get into actual Crystal Enterprise report migration. So that's not included first in Service Pack 4, but you will be able to use universes in your regular Crystal mode. Other enhancements, we're having now kind of a Fiori viewer as well. So when you're in the Launchpad in that Fiorified look and feel, we now have that with a viewer for Crystal as well. And so you can do that. You can actually modify that from the CMC and do other things. You've got a favorite function capability in the toolbar, and it also works with Open Document. And then from another capability that was a customer request was to actually be able to export to PDF with password protection. So that is there now, as well as supporting the variance parameter. From a .NET and SDK standpoint, so a couple of dates to be aware of. Number one, we've extended the date for end of maintenance for Visual Studio to December 2027. And there's a link here you can look at after you get the slides. And that will be reviewed. So we're still 4 years out from that. So I'd say at least in the next 2 years, they'll get one more review to see if we extend that further or not. And the .NET runtime for 32-bit is definitely going to be discontinued after December 2025. We're moving, truly the whole platform. We're moving to 64-bit, and so that includes the SDKs and the .NET side. So let's talk Webby. So the data mode that we introduced around this time last year, when the ladies had me along for another webinar, has been very successful and very well received. So we introduced that in Service Pack 3, and the key thing there is that even though the universe shields the complexity of the underlying database, there may still be other things that people want to do to the data to get it to render better in their report or for more reporting purposes. And so that's really kind of the idea behind the data mode. So it's a self-service way for them to model the data in Poor-man's modeling, if you will. And so it was very key and very well received, but one of the big fault lines was that it could only do outer joins. And so now new capabilities, we have the combine operators to do full joins, inner joins, and left joins without intersection as well. So fully capable to do better data modeling. And we also had a limitation where once you joined a microcube to another microcube as a parent or a child, you were not able to use that anymore for additional modeling capabilities in that same report. So we've undone that as well. So you can now reuse a cube in multiple different combinations. So it truly is a robust, even more robust and powerful than it was when it first started. You can also show and hide cubes. So if Helen doesn't trust me, she builds a report and wants to show kind of the data mode, but doesn't trust me to not screw something up, she actually has the ability to show and hide cubes from me. So that makes sense if you don't trust your end user base fully. And then other little usability enhancements in terms of icons that we've added so that you understand when a different microcube or object within the microcube is being used, whether you've hidden that or not. And so it's more consistent looking around. And another consistency is that as you can see in kind of the middle of the screen, the dark blue ellipsis that's circled. So that is the more option. So that is, and that's on our SAP Analytics Cloud as well as Web Intelligence. And so anytime, depending on how you've shrunk or grown your screen size, you may be missing some options. So the more option is always there to make sure that you've got the full contextual menu capable. And then you've also got refresh time. This was another request from the customers that in the microcubes themselves, the refresh time for the query is displayed. Web is a data source. So this is something we introduced really for the hybrid mode with SAC, but it's also grown as a lot of people want to, instead of, again, putting Helen on the spot, if Helen built a nice document, instead of me taking that document, copying it, probing the database, getting the data set back, and then modifying it to my own kind of uses and desires, I can simply use her Webby document that lives in the repository as a data source. And so it's less hit on the underlying database, less strain, and certainly if it's in the cloud, it kind of helps you in terms of less interaction between the cloud and the data sources, so helping with your platform costs there. So a key thing now though is that we've got the ability to, from the Webby as a data source, control if you want to refresh the source data. So the source document, you can now refresh that instead of having to actually manually do that step before you then go back in and try and use it as a source. And that's true of the OData support as well. So now with OData, especially if you're pushing that out as in the old mode of document as a web service or query as a web service, we've got then the ability to do refreshing and also to put prompt values kind of a la open document code into the OData support line as well. Reporting interactions. So we've got more robust ways to hide columns in a table if you so desire from a dynamic standpoint. And also from an intra-document link, we've done some improvements in terms of using the filters on the target document. And that includes more filter types to include spinners, sliders, and double sliders as well that you can push with that intra-document link. Multiple chart enhancements, so we're always trying to improve our graphics. So the graphic windowing and floating toolbars are now available. The ability to pop out your graph into kind of full screen mode, that's there as well for more of our chart types. And another shortcoming of the geo mapping that we used to have was that the database that ships with the tool set only included those cities that had 100,000 or more inhabitants. And that limitation's been removed in Service Pack 4. So we have a much more robust underlying database for mapping that makes it much more easy to use for you as you're trying to use geospatial. Send to is back, so that was missing. Although we did bring it back in Service Pack 3 patch 1 in the new year. But so send to is there for Service Pack 4 fully. And that includes sending to the BI inbox, email, FTP, servers, file systems, etc. So that was another customer request to get that back in. We've done some modifications to the formula language. So that includes new time awareness functions that we have, as well as better data source properties, some custom properties in terms of list and values that you've created. And also we changed the separator and formula language for user response. Other improvements, if you're using search for certain strings in the definition of variables, then it's actually going to give you kind of this nice yellow highlighted look at all of the variables that search string is included in. So it's not a kind of a one-off control F kind of a motion anymore. It gives you more of the full picture of where those strings that you're looking for are, so you can modify your code in a much easier fashion. Other improvements, we now have both the document ID and the QID that we show in the properties tab of the build panel. In the navigation tab of the build panel, we're showing all of the sections as a tree list that you can kind of roll up and roll down. And we also have informational tooltips available in the filter bar. So again, for that low common denominator user who you don't necessarily trust to even understand what they're doing from a filtering standpoint, it lets you put better tooltips in to let them understand what it is that they're trying to do from a filtering standpoint. We've also got numeric and date time display formats that we've added, including currency and time zone there. And this is one of my faves. We've actually got, along the lines of putting those tooltips in, we've actually got the ability to group our prompts so that it kind of into logical sets that the end user can understand as well. So everything about location, everything about date, time, everything about product, everything about whatever the other kind of broader categories you might want to put them in. You can group all of those prompts together so that it makes a little more sense to that low common denominator user. Direct access to DataSphere. So those who are familiar with Data Warehouse Cloud and before it, data services, kind of our ETL mode, DataSphere is our strategic look forward at kind of virtual data warehousing, data marting, federation, etc. And so much like HANA before it, we now have the ability for Webby to go directly at DataSphere without an intervening universe. So that's kind of a big step forward. It also shows that we don't see Webby going anywhere anytime soon. We're doubling down on Webby with the full strategy. Semantic layer. So, excuse me, I've got to take some water here. So in terms of getting ready for UNX only mode in 2025. We've improved the conversion from UNVs to UNXs. We've also improved the performance of UNXs within Webby itself. And then we have some other capabilities to get ready for that removal. Launchpad and workspace. Big thing there is improving workspace capability and stability. So navigation, performance during navigation, and performance as well. So I'm a big workspace fan. Excuse me, I'm very colluded with my chest here. Multiple events while scheduling. Sorry. So another key thing there is the current limitation is that when you're scheduling, if you have multiple events, they all have to go forward before the trigger of that schedule. So now we've got the option to check any event. And so when any of those events fire or trigger, then the schedule will occur. Excuse me. We at 2025. So number one, we're going to want to reach more casual users. Number two, we want to be sure that Webby becomes, again, more of a power experience for everyone. And number three, reducing your total cost of ownership. And so when you get these slides, the future
Patrick,
Chevron.
do you want me to jump in for a second just while you get your breath back, because you sound like you're really struggling a bit. So let me jump in for you. So just going on, taking on there from this slide for Web Intelligence, things that have recently been delivered, you can see there on the side. So the interface has been modernified. I don't know if that is even a verb. I've just made it up. Being able to resize tables via anchor and lasso selection. There's lots of possibility extensions in terms of Google and Microsoft Drive support, the ability to organize your prompts, dynamically show and hide reports. And then what's planned in the sort of short-term future is around self-service BI, so additional enhancements to the user face, advanced search in available objects panel, more support for the SAP DataSphere and OLAP data, and some more stuff there on data preparation. And then in the future, it's all about improving the visualizations, interactivities and dashboarding, and making that shared analysis and assets offline distribution. I'm really excited about that one because Patrick was taking me through it the other day. And for those of you that remember the old Excelsior Swift files, whereby you could send a dashboard that had interactivity in a Shockwave Flash, and it retained its interactivity. And we lost that when we lost Flash, and they're looking at how to bring that back in within Web Intelligence. So that one there, shared analysis and assets offline distribution, is, if you recall those halcyon days where you were able to send a dashboard that retained its activity, its interactivity, even when it's offline. They're looking at bringing that back into Web Intelligence, which I got ridiculously excited about the other day, didn't I, Patrick? When you were taking me through it, I was like, "Is that like a Swift file?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my God, so excited!"
So that's good. No, that's one of my favorite things too.
Yeah. So
yeah. So
I'm really pleased with that one.
So recently delivered is Service Pack 3, planned is Service Pack 4, and future is BI 2025. That's the key for this. Cool. Platform, more always scheduling and publication are really always the key things we're doing with the platform, as well as better scalability, continued enterprise performance, etc. Also, haven't really done much with the CMC in 4.3, but I think that we're going to try and increase some of the things you can control with the CMC without having to do it via SDK and API, and traceability within the CMC as well. So that's big for the platform. And then Crystal still gets love, right? As I said, so you'll be able to use universes as of Service Pack 4, but we're now going to bring OLAP universes into it as well as IDT connections. improving Crystal for Enterprise to Crystal Classic migration, other SDK enhancements, and then any other customer requests, which, believe it or not, we're still seeing for good old flagship Crystal there. And that, I believe, is it. Back to you, Helen. And I apologize for my loss of breath there.
Okay, no, it's all right. It sounds like you've got a bit of a cold going on.
Yes,
so,
I do, yes, sadly.
Okay, hope you're feeling better. Okay, so thank you very much, Patrick, for taking us through that. There is some really interesting stuff in there, and it's nice to hear that we're getting the interactivity coming back, because that was such a good feature. So we were really sad when we lost that. And nice to see that Crystal is getting a little bit of love as well. So I'll open it up to anybody on the call. If there's any questions anybody wants to ask. I've had one that was sent in to me by somebody who had asked me to ask this question if I got the opportunity. So something about Lumira Designer, it showed up as being in the 2025 release earlier in that slide, but we thought that was being retired. So any explanation as to why that's being kept on, or what's going on there?
So for those of you who, I think I left you the link last year for our statement of direction, and that gets updated, at will. But product management about 3 weeks ago decided that the runway path for users to kind of take their code from Lumira Designer and their coded applications and move those into SAC, that they needed more time. So they went ahead and decided that Lumira Designer will live on past 4.3.
Super, cool, fantastic. That multiple event scheduler improvement, whereby you can now schedule it to any event. Can you specify the event that will trigger the schedule, or is it just any?
Sadly, no, it's any, but still, it's an improvement. But I think if that's something that would be of interest, which I do like the idea when you bring that up, Helen, I think that would be great for the ideas place.
Okay, I might put that one in myself.
Okay,
there you go. All right.
Get 15 votes. That's the key. There is get 15 votes.
15.
15.
Okay, well, there's at least 15 on this call, so
well, there we go.
There you go. There's a call to action for you all. Any other questions coming in from anyone at all? Another one that I had come in was operational reporting. So Crystal, the pixel perfect page-based reporting, is that ever going to be included as part of SAC? Because at the minute they're really quite far apart, aren't they?
I would call that aspirational roadmap. So it's, there's so many things they're trying to do with SAC. They're kind of the classic not so sexy stuff gets left behind, if you will. And so I think that's one that it's on the roadmap, and I submit a report up to the board every quarter where that is still a requested thing from the end users. But just being perfectly honest with the kimono open here, I don't see it as a priority for product management and product development right now. So yes, It's there aspirationally, and it is where they want to go ultimately.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions coming in actually from the floor. Will Crystal still be available as a standalone license, or will it need the platform environment?
So for those of you who buy Crystal through the store, it's still there. I know that we've had some partner and reseller agreements that seem to be coming to an end, and I'm not sure what the status is on renewing any of that. But yes, as long as Crystal exists in the BOBJ platform, Crystal exists as a standalone license to include Crystal Server in the store.
Okay, all right. And what about Crystal Reports itself, the desktop client application? Is that still staying around as a separate thing?
In the store, yeah.
Okay. Do we have any more detail on the time awareness functions in Webby, please? Any functions that can calculate working days between two dates?
I'd have to look back at the notes to see what some of those were. I don't think that's in there, but I do like that one. But I can follow up and look on that and see.
Okay, so I've had a question that's quite specific.
Okay.
SAP have advisors that our access to SAP Business Intelligence updates will end on the 31st of December 2025. SAP Business Intelligence, also known as Business Objects, that's fine. Customers with OEM licensing from another partner will be able to continue running Business Intelligence beyond that date, since this licensing is perpetual. However, there'll be no further software updates available beyond it, which means new security vulnerabilities will not be patched beyond December 2025. So the software would then become non-viable from a security perspective. Is a statement that somebody's had from a OEM supplier. Do we know if that means the OEM licensing is ending? Are you able to clarify?
So I'd have to know the
might have to
OEM
come back
specifically, but I know that there are a lot of OEM agreements that are ending. One that immediately comes to mind is with Epic, a healthcare provider. And in that, I know in the Epic case that they don't have perpetual licenses, so they're actually, when that OEM ends, those healthcare customers are relicensing with SAP so that they get SAP support, SAP life cycles and maintenance and things like that. So that's one we'd have to look at the specific OEM and the agreement and go from there. So there's probably a little more legal involved in that.
Okay. So to the person who raised that question, if you want to drop me an email, we can pick that up for you specifically. We'll take that one offline for you. Okay. Will there be an SAP Crystal Server 2025 is a question. So we've been talking about Business Objects 2025. Is SAP Crystal Server also going to get?
I don't know if it's going to be called 2025 or not, or still just Crystal Server 2020, but whenever we change the name for Crystal, it'll get that as well. But yes, Crystal Server will exist as long as Bob J and Crystal exist in that regard as well. It's just, again, much like the when I mentioned before, I know that some reseller agreements have ended and some partner ways to do that have ended, but it's still there should still be there in the SAP store.
Okay, excellent. Super duper. Fantastic. Okay, the date of that next, there's a screen there that's got some webinars on it. Actually, the first date is wrong. Don't quite know what's going on there.
Did I screw that up?
Oh, maybe. It's all right, doesn't matter. There is a webinar on Tuesday, Simplify and Accelerate Your Data Strategy. Try and say that fast, that's quite difficult. That's Tuesday coming at 2 p.m. You can register for that via the Codestone page, or if you look for me on LinkedIn, I've got it advertised on there, or Codestone Group, we've got it advertised on there as well. And then we've got another one coming up in January for protecting your critical systems, cybersecurity for SAP, which will be hosted by some of my colleagues in the Cloud and Managed Services team. On the screen has joined us is my good colleague and friend, Sue Cook. And I think on the very last slide, our email addresses are on there. So if you have any questions about today, or any concerns you have, if you want to raise anything or something occurs to you, do please drop us an email and we can pick that up with you. Sue, did you have anything to add? Have I missed anything?
No, lovely. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Helen. Just to add, though, that Codestone, DS CalArts, we still do have that reseller agreement. So if anybody does need any additional Crystal Server licensing or Crystal Reports licensing, then they can come direct to us. That is for existing, though, not for net new.
Yes,
great.
Indeed.
That's
Thank
great.
you. Okay. Any more? Does anybody have any final questions coming through? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm feeling creative today. I don't quite know what's wrong. Right. Well, I'll let you have some time back. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for joining. Patrick, thank you as ever for a fantastic informative session. Hope you're feeling a bit better. Sorry to make you do lots of talking when you've got a bad chest. That's not great timing, is it? But thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you at the next one. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.